Welcome, everybody, to episode 2 of the Jader and Kyle show. Thank you for coming back and joining us for our very first one last week, and now we're back at it again. My name is Kyle. I'm a writer here for Cinesports Talk, and joined by my buddy Jader here. Jader, how's it going?
It's going, man. It's going. Happy Friday. I mean, every day feels like Friday lately, to be
That's right.
completely honest with you.
It's been movies every day here in my house.
It really has, dude. For me too, man. For me too. I'm actually excited about the one we're going to talk about, to be completely honest with you.
So I'm glad you bring that up because we're going to be doing something fun every single week. We'll talk about that later. But I told you last week that there is a certain franchise that I started watching. And I've never seen this franchise. Every time I tell people I've never seen it, they always freak out and say, "How could you not have seen this?" And that franchise is Harry Potter.
Oh my God.
Never read any of the books, never seen any of the movies. And it wasn't until last week.
I did both.
What do you mean?
I read the books and saw the movie. Yeah.
So did everybody in my age growing up. Everyone was obsessed with it. And the fantasy genre has never been one huge for me. I like Game of Thrones, but like Lord of the Rings, I'm not that into. And just all these fantasy epics, they're just never been for me. So we finally started watching Harry Potter. Last night I saw the 6th one, which is Half-Blood Prince. I like them. The first one I was really into. The second one I was not. That one was a drag. And the third one was like, okay, like this was going. The fourth one.
Go ahead.
The fourth one's my favorite one because that was. Yeah.
I'm glad you said that, to be honest with you. I'm glad you said that. So check this out. I kind of geek out when it comes to Harry Potter. I really like these films a lot. Okay. I am not a fan, which we'll get into all this in a little bit, where I can remember every single potion, every single professor. Nope. That's not me. But I thoroughly enjoy these films. The first book, how I came across the book, funny enough, is my English teacher in the 7th grade, I want to say. I've always been into comics and things like that. And, during, reading, she would give me crap, but she would let me read my comics sometimes. And one time she stops me and then she's like, "Hey, have you ever heard of Harry Potter?" And I was like, "No, what is that?" And she's like, "Oh, I think it's a book right up your alley," AKA calling me a nerd, low key, right? So I was like, "What is it?" And then she's like, "Take my copy. There's only, I think, like 2 or 3 of them out right now." So I think they were only up to Prisoner of Azkaban. And she was like, "I think you'll really like it. It might even only be Chamber of Secrets," because I remember grabbing Prisoner of Azkaban and waiting for it. But anyway, so I started reading it and fell in love with it, to be completely honest with you. It was one of the fastest reads I've ever done. I think I read that first book in like about 2 or 3 days. And when the movie came out, it was during a stage where you don't want to admit that you want to go see a Harry Potter. I was like, the mid-teens where I was like, "Oh, no, whatever." And I have to regrettably say that I did not see it in the theater. I didn't see the first one in the theater. And I waited for it to come out on video. And then I remember my girlfriend at the time's little brother, they bought it on DVD. And I saw it. I was dying to see it. And out of all the books, to me, the first one is the one that really captures like the magic. No pun intended, obviously.
Okay.
But even the stairs moving, like it, page by page, it was so descriptive, and that's literally how I pictured it. So seeing it on the small screen was, damn it, magical. I didn't want to use that word, but it was great, man. And
what's happening for me right now is I can understand why this is so popular, and it's because if you're in high school growing up and you grow up with these movies, you want to be a part of that world. You want to go to this magical school where you get to create potions and do magic spells and fly on brooms and play the sport that's outlandish, and you want to be a part of that group. And then as the movies go on, the actors get older as you get older. So you feel like you're kind of growing up with them. And that's
absolutely.
I can respect that a lot about Harry Potter. So maybe what we should do is, because I have 2 movies left to watch. I have to watch the Deathly Hallows Part 1 and 2. Maybe what we can do next week is to kind of do a deep dive into the franchise if you're such a big fan of it.
I'm game. I'm
I have
game.
some notes about some of them. Like the second one. The second one is my least favorite. I'll just throw that out right there. I hate.
And it will probably remain that way. To be completely honest with you, the one I hated the most out of all of them was Order of the Phoenix. I couldn't stand that movie because I liked the book and I felt like the movie didn't it didn't do a deep dive into the book. However, I recently watched them probably about like 4 or 5 months ago. I revisited The World and I ended up loving it, like really liking it. And I had only seen that movie one time in the theater, and I was like, I imagine when I was getting them on DVD,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't buy the fifth one. Like I bought one,
You're
two,
so
three,
angry at
four,
that one.
6, 7, and 8 or 7 part 2. I just didn't like that, and I had not revisited since I saw it in the theater, and I was like, and I remember Steph was like, "Hey, do you even want to watch it?" I'm like, "You have to watch this movie." And then she's like, "All right." So when we were seeing it, she's like looking at me. She goes, "This is pretty good. I don't know what you're talking about." And then I'm like, "It is pretty good, huh?" I'm like, "I don't know." And it was just Professor Umbridge that I hated. I hated her character.
She's terrible. But my thing with that movie is after you finish watching it, it's just a bridge. That movie is just a bridge to the next movie, and that's what's disappointing about because you end 4 with a big thing happening, and so you're hyped up for 5, and then nothing really happens.
Nothing happens. Oh, so that's kind of what I guess it makes sense. It actually does make a lot of sense.
But my biggest thing with the franchise, the second movie, at the beginning of the second movie, well, the big gag in the second movie is Ron breaks his wand, and so every time he goes to use it, kind of like jumps back at him. At the beginning of the movie, Harry breaks his glasses, and Hermione immediately comes up to him and fixes his glasses with the glasses. Why couldn't you fix Ron's wand the entire movie? It could have solved so many problems. And just the entire time I'm sitting there thinking, man, did no one check this at all? Or did J.K. Rowling write this? What? I didn't get it, and it frustrated me. And then to top it off,
that's really so. No, so I get it because 4 was my favorite one for a long time. For a very long time. I didn't think 4 was going to get topped. I thought the games were a lot of fun. And it really, even though 3 started taking the dark turn, 4 got really dark.
Yeah, it did. I love 4.
It got really dark. And then, like you said, we grew up with the characters. So when 4 came out, I think it was 2004, 2005. I'm pretty sure it's 2005 when 4 came out. So I just I was in college already when that movie came out. So I was like, man, I like this. I like that. And I was kind of freaking out that they weren't going to go that route from the book. I thought they were going to like, and I mean, he wasn't a very known, character. You know who I'm, not character, actor. You know who I'm talking about. Robert Pattinson. Yeah. And I don't know why. I just didn't think they were going to, since they were so, like, the movies were for kids. I didn't think they were going to follow that, even though 3, again, got a little bit dark and all that stuff. So I didn't think so. When it ends the way that it ends, it's very, like, gloomy.
Oh, yeah.
The way it ends, or you're like, holy crap. I love 4 for a long time. I really like the way the story ends. So I like 8. But on the rewatch, I want to say 3. So Prisoner of Azkaban, for me, it's 3 and 4 and 8. Those are like the best ones.
I'm looking forward to 8. I'm not looking forward to 7 too much because I hate the part 1, part 2 thing that they do with these movies. With Hunger Games especially, that one burned me because you go in the Hunger Games part 1 and it's really just it's a boring set. It's an entire first act basically.
That's what it is.
Yeah, you're just waiting for something to happen and nothing.
It's interesting because it is a little interesting. I liked it better obviously than Hunger Games, Mike and Jay. But it does feel that way, and it will feel that way. It has a very interesting beginning because they're going to mention some very important details of Voldemort, and then it's kind of like filler. It ends on a kind of like, oh, wow, and then the conclusion with part 2 is where everything just kicks off. And you're going to see a lot of fun stuff. One of the things that I didn't like, and we'll get into deep dive next week. But there's something that I didn't like in part 6, which we'll discuss next week, and we're gonna do it.
Yeah. We'll talk about our favorite characters. We'll talk about.
But I'm glad you're liking it, man. I'm glad you're liking it. I have some friends that tried watching it, and they're like, "This is not for me."
It's not for some people. It's hard to get into, and if you're not into it after the first movie, it's tough to have someone come back for the second movie, which is even longer,
even worse.
Yeah,
even longer, and even I think it's the longest one out of all of them, and I think they were trying to get a lot of details from the book. Even the book for me wasn't that great. It wasn't, because I almost stopped reading after 2 because I didn't like the story that much. I thought it was okay compared to what we got in the first one, but then 3 kicks it off. I love Sirius Black, and he's one of my favorite characters.
Well, there's a twist in the second one that is so stupid at the end, and I'm not gonna say what it is. We'll talk about it next week. But it's so dumb that when they revealed it, I laughed out loud.
Did you saw it coming?
I didn't know. It's something I didn't see coming. It was almost as bad as the Martha moment. It has to do with someone's name unscrambling letters to something else. I thought it was.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
It was so dumb, but we'll get to it next week.
The whole time I thought it was that who it was, so that's why I was like, oh, okay, whatever. I think anything of it. But it's funny because I'm not really into these. I'm not really into not science fiction, fantasy. To be completely honest with you, there's a lot of movies like I don't like Jim Henson, and I get a lot of that. I get a lot of crap for that because I really don't care for any Jim Henson. I don't like The Dark Crystal. I don't care to see Willow. Like all these movies that are like praised, right? Mm-hmm. I'm just not into them. I'm pretty much like Harry Potter. I am a Lord of the Rings fan and all that. I love Lord of the Rings, to be completely honest with you. But it's one of those things where and everything else, I'm just not. It's not for me. So I understand. I don't really push the Harry Potter films or the Lord of the Rings film on people. If it's not for you, it's not for you. Exactly. There's some things that you're like, oh, you should check this out. I think you'll like. It's one of those where I'm like, I get it. Like, it's not for everybody.
No. But we'll get to that next week. There are some news aspects that happened this week. We have to get into some news because even though we're all quarantined and the film industry is basically shut down, some stuff does come out. And the biggest news that happened was officially that San Diego Comic-Con got canceled. We all expected it at this point. It really made no sense to continue on with it. And over these past couple of years, these studios have been even lesser and lesser going to this. I remember last year, Warner Brothers and Sony both pulled out of Comic-Con just because they didn't want to spend the money on it. It's really not worth it to spend all that money to fly out all these actors and promote your films to an audience that's going to see these films anyways. So they pulled out of it. Marvel did a big thing last year, revealing Phase 4. That was huge. But coming up this year with the coronavirus and everything that's going on, people kind of said, how are they going to have Comic-Con? How are they going to have all these people in this building at the same time trying to see all these films when there's this virus going around? And it got to the point where they finally pulled the plug on it. They said, that's enough. We're not going to do it anymore. So I don't know if you were ever planning on going to Comic-Con this year, but
I was. Actually, I was. It was going to be my first Comic-Con. Comic-Con's always the week after my birthday.
Yeah.
So it was going to be a big treat yourself moment after all this BS. Mm-hmm. And, the Schmoes always have a panel there and all that stuff. So if they had one, I wanted to be part of it. And I did want to go. I was obviously thinking the whole time, like, I kind of hope it gets canceled secretly, more because I didn't want to be given the choice that I could go. Because
you would make the choice. You would do it.
I probably would have gone, and that's not the right choice to do. So I'm kind of glad that I'm not given a choice right now, but I was planning on going because, they told me that, talking to like BC and everybody, from over there in LA telling me that it's such a great experience. They're like, dude, we should go, this and that and that. They're like, well, we'll have a blast. So they really kind of like gave me that, damn, I really do want to go. So I was planning, and BC was the one that actually broke out the news to me. He's the one that sent me, and he goes, "Oh, your birthday's canceled, dude." I was like, "Damn it, man!" But
It
at the
would have
same
been
time,
way too risky, man, because even if it was still happening, none of the studios would have gone out of the risk, because none of the actors would have wanted to fly to that and be around a big crowd of people who could potentially have the virus, could easily spread again. The governor or the mayor of Los Angeles has said that he doesn't see sports or concerts happening in LA until 2021. They could still be played without fans for sports, but something as big as Comic-Con, to me, that's just how many people go to, like 100,000 or something? It's something insane.
Easily, dude. Easily.
Yeah, all packed into this tiny space. So it just never made sense. And even so, if even if it was still going on, I don't think it would have been worth it this year. So maybe next year when things get better, it might be good for people. I know we have some friends in the industry who are part of the press, and we're really looking forward to going to this and being part of the press for the first time. Fortunately, it's not going to work out. New York Comic-Con is still on for October right now. Who knows where the world's going to be at this point? I don't see that happening, though. We might just have to take a year off from Comic-Con. So then Star Wars Celebration is in August this year. That's another one we got to start thinking about. So,
yeah. I don't think anything's going to happen. I was honestly, it's funny because I have tickets to like 6 shows that were happening this year. And everything. There's 2 that are still supposedly on, but there's no, and one's in October. Okay. But there's no way in hell. I think concerts should be canceled this year. Yeah. You know, it's just something that has to be done, unfortunately. And it sucks because concerts are always my getaway. That's where it's like going to the movies. To me, going to a concert is, you know, a lot of people are like, how do you spend so much money going to shows and this and that? And it's like, it's literally what, like funny enough, because I listen to crazy, metal music, but it's like a safe haven for me. It's a place of tranquility, even though, there's people screaming and bashing each other's on the head and stuff like that. But for me, it's my zen. So I'm kind of bummed because literally I have a top 5, favorite bands, and 4 out of the 5 were coming this year to South Florida, which never happened.
It's too bad.
And then one of them, out of the 4 out of the 5, one of them, the 2 members are dead. So it's not like they can even 4, So I was super excited to see my favorite bands. It was starting from May till October. Oh. Super hyped, and it's not happening, So, but I feel like it is a necessity, and I feel like Go ahead.
Oh yeah, so what I'm saying is that like you don't want to be, if you're one of these artists, these singers, you don't want to be the one who puts on your concert and then it spreads throughout your crowd. You're the reason why that this thing is not dying.
Yeah, exactly. No, and again, it's I'm glad I'm not given the choice. Like I said, because I'd be one of those. It's funny because I preach a lot, like stay home and all that stuff. But I'm like right now, when it comes to a show or something like that, I'll be like, oh man, I want to go, or something crazy like Comic-Con, Other than that, I wouldn't go. Even today, she was like, oh, we got to go grocery shopping. And I'm like, we're fine. We have pasta, man. I don't want to go out. I haven't been one. We called, this is like out of topic, but we called our insurance because they sent us an email about how many miles we've been driving to see if they can help us out or whatever. We have Geico, by the way, so just in case. Or Progressive. I don't even know what I got. Anyways, but they asked me how many miles have you driven in the past month, and I think I said like 15 miles in a month, which is insane.
I haven't filled up my gas tank in a month and a half.
Yeah, I know, exactly. It's crazy. I filled up last week, but before that, it had been like about a month.
Yeah, you don't need
crazy because I wasn't even on full. I was like on half a tank.
Yeah, it's cheap right now too. It's cheap.
Oh, dirt cheap. I put it on for. There's a Shell station around my house. I put it. The last time I filled up, $1.74, $1.74. It's fantastic.
It's insane. But that's it for news right now. There's not much going on in the world.
I got something for you. The Dune pictures. What'd you think?
So I'm really excited for this movie. I know nothing about the property, only that David Lynch directed a version of this back then that it's really not well received. But Denis Villeneuve's doing it, and that's all that matters to me. I don't care how great the cast is, because the cast is pretty amazing. It's Denis Villeneuve, and to me, he's the best director working right now.
I can get behind that. I can get behind that, absolutely.
You got your Sicario, you got your Blade Runner 2049, and then Arrival.
I haven't seen that.
Movies. Blade Runner?
I have not seen Blade Runner, and I love the first one so much. I am obsessed with the original Blade Runner, but since I missed it in the theater, right? I refuse to watch it in a small screen, and I know that doesn't make a lot of sense, right? Because it's
you're never gonna watch it.
So check this out. So my uncle has a 80-inch television set, right? Okay. And he has the film because he loves it, and he has a 4K TV, and he has surround sound in his house. So I told him, I'm like, when you have time, because he's essential and he's working, I'm like, please, if you're ever down to watch this movie, I'm like, I want to see it, but I want to see it here. I refuse to watch it anywhere else since I already missed it in the theater. Yeah. And he goes, I don't know how you call yourself a critic, and you didn't go see this movie because this movie's fantastic.
It's amazing. What sucks is that you're probably never going to get to see it in theaters unless it's like the 20-year anniversary or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Because even though theaters are actually talking about opening back up in about June, July-ish, and they're talking about opening back up by playing previous hits. You're not going to get Blade Runner 2049 as a part of that. That's just not going to happen.
No, it's not, because it kind of didn't even do good in the box office. It was one of those. No. So my whole thing with the movie, that the stills look great. I am another one that I've seen Dune. I've seen it once, way back when. I think I saw it when I was like 10, and I was bored out of my mind.
Yeah.
With the same uncle that I just mentioned. He's a big sci-fi fan, and he loves Dune. He loves the original Dune. He thinks it's fantastic. I was not on board. I didn't care. You could have told me, hey, they're remaking Dune. I would have shrugged my shoulders. It really wasn't until I heard Denis Villeneuve was doing it, and I was like, all right. I kind of pulled a Leonardo DiCaprio in Django, got my attention.
Oh yeah.
But then honestly, where I was like, all right, even though I was on board with the director, I was already in, but I was like, take my money now with the cast. The cast did really sell. All right. So you have help me out with the names, man. Timothy Sad Boy, bro. What's his name?
Timothy Chalamet, Isaac, Zendaya, and who am I forgetting? Josh Brolin.
Jason Momoa is in it.
Yeah.
Jason Momoa is in it.
Let me pull it up, but it's a huge cast. Let me see.
So yeah, it's not a film that I really cared for when it came out. I saw it that one time, and that was it. But so far, he hasn't missed for me yet, directing wise. I think every one of his films, it's not even they're not all right films. They're fantastic.
Yeah,
he doesn't. And I have yet to see Blade Runner 2049. But given everything else that he's done, like I love Enemy, I love Prisoners, I love Sicario. Like
Arrival to me is one of the best movies of the century. I love that movie so much, and I hope we get to talk about it one day on this show because I think
Arrival is another one that I absolutely love. So, and that's what I was gonna say. He already, wet his beak a little bit with science fiction, and he did an amazing job. Arrival could have easily won Best Picture.
Oh yeah, it should have won Best Picture. That was 2016. Okay, Moonlight was great, but
La La Land. Sorry.
La La Land is great too, but Arrival is better than both of them. And then just throw out a couple more names. You got Rebecca Ferguson, you got Dave Bautista, and you got Javier Bardem. Those are three more names. So,
and those are not. I mean, at least Javier Bardem is not a small name, Yeah. And Rebecca Ferguson, I've been loving everything she did. I loved her so much in Dr. Sleep.
Yeah,
she was fantastic as Rose the Hat.
So that's definitely a movie. I hope that doesn't get pushed back. It's probably going to bomb, honestly. Villeneuve did also mention that this is, guys, 2 movies we're doing with this. This is 2 parts that he's doing. So hopefully he has that second movie made already by the time this one comes out, because I have a feeling this is not going to perform that well at the box office, especially considering a lot of stuff's been pushed back towards the Christmas season. And now you're going up against Top Gun when you weren't going up against that before. You already have to compete with Steven Spielberg's West Side Story. So I could easily see if this, God forbid, this virus pushes even more Christmas is a great time to release Wonder Woman. So just I'd say be careful if you're Dune. Maybe start thinking about pushing yourself back a little bit more. But time will tell. Let's do a quick.
If I were them, I'd probably push it till next year. It sucks to say, but I would probably push it to like a February or even a March date. Those are good dates.
Yeah.
But it's money, man.
It is money. It's all about money. I want to see them both no matter what because Denny does not miss. So we'll see what happens. Let's do a quick recap of this week's Schmoedown. It was Robert Parker versus Andres Ace Cabrera, an Inner Geekdom match. Robert Parker is the most hyped up person I've ever seen in the history of the Schmoedown. People could not shut up about this guy since this new season got announced. He jumps the stage in New York for no reason, does a bad promo, and I was just like, oh,
hey. Relax, bro. Time out, man. Time out. That's my boy you're talking about, bro. That's the brother Robert Parker.
I'm going to say this up top. I got nothing wrong, no problems with Robert Parker as a personality, as a person himself. I think he seems great I've never read it before, but he seems great from everything he said. He knows his character. He's very smart, honestly. I just hate hype. I hate hyping someone up as the best of all time who has not competed in a single match. It's so annoying to me. It's disrespectful to everyone who's already in the competition itself. And I just get super annoyed by it. So when they're saying that, what, this kid, he's way better than Kevin Smith and Mike Kalinowski and Rachel Cushing, and he's going to destroy the league. And like, do it. Show me first. Do something. So he did something.
I was like, where are you going with this, by the way? Did you see the match?
I saw the match. All right. So we don't even have to break down the match that much. He went up against Ace. Ace, who is not a slouch at all. He's a very knowledgeable person, but he's knowledgeable about a whole world of film, where Parker's really consistent in his Inner Geekdom. So I don't think Ace was really aware of what he was getting into. You could see it in the match because Ace would ask things that you really should know going in, like, do I have to write down my answers for the second round question? Yeah. And, can you repeat the options? Does that count against me? You should know this stuff kind of going in. So you can tell Ace was kind of maybe thrown into this and didn't really know what he was about to hit. And he really hit a freight train because Robert Parker was ready to go and he did not miss a single question. So I know you really like this kid.
That's what do you have to say about him? That's the hype. That's the reason why he has the hype. Look, obviously, I can show my fandom when it comes to obviously we're not faction mates, but this is Inner Geekdom. It's not in the same league that I'm in. So I can geek out when, or root for said person. So I'm glad I can call them now peers and friends and all that. But Smets is a force to be reckoned with. He always has been. Just like KO. KO's really stepped his game up. I don't know if you saw backstage. Did you get to see me on backstage or not? Yeah. So
yes, I did.
One of the things that I like that Bateman said was how everyone's beginning is completely different. Like the big time players, except if you're Dan Murrell, how I love how except if you're Dan Murrell, everybody had like a rough start or like a road that they had to do, and then they excel to greatness. Yeah. And that's one of the things. Smets came in, booming, and then he had that one mistake with the don't tell Peter, and I felt like that kind of like grounded him, But then he came back and KO'd, With Parker, I obviously when you're hearing hype and all that, I saw his fan league matches, not all, but I've seen like around. I think I saw like 2 of them, and it's impressive. Like seeing that alone, it's impressive. So I was hyped to see him, and I was hoping, just like I wanted him to come out with the W. No offense to Ace whatsoever, but again. And going back, I know I am part of this league, but I am also still a very big fan of the league. So it's kind of hard when they're telling you can't root for this person or you can't do this because that's why eventually that's going to be an enemy or you're going to have to face this person. It's hard. But I'm glad that I can really open up about this one because I'm not an Inner Geekdom. I don't think I will ever be an Inner Geekdom for what I said earlier.
Faction doesn't have any Inner Geekdom players, if I recall. Nope. So you don't have to worry about this.
So I'm good. Yeah, exactly. So I'm good to go. But seeing Parker come in, he was just very, very chill. I didn't even think he was breaking a sweat, to be completely honest with you. One of the things that is crazy, where I sympathize with Ace, was his round 2, because obviously that's, I felt him where he spun Star Trek. He was like, hell no. Spun again, got Harry Potter, was very happy to get Harry Potter, and ends up getting 1 point.
Parker got 4 points from
before. Well, Parker does a perfect round 1, gets the bonus question, then steals 4 before he even spins.
Mm-hmm.
That's insane. So that's what I mean. The hype is real, man. Like, I know it's one match, and I want him I want him already, like, to elevate, to see where he can bump heads with somebody, whether it be Smets or KO. But I'm hyped to see that match already. I already want to fast forward time to see how far this kid can go, man, because it's impressive, man. You call a spade. It's work. I understand you don't like hype, and I get that, because I'm kind of the same way. I'm actually a big underdog person. That's why, I root for myself. I am an underdog in this league, and I want to show the world what I got. This kid comes in here, and he was hyped I remember, funny enough, when I was sitting down in the draft, and I was texting Gilly, and Gil texts me, and he goes, "Is Robert Parker there?" Like, asked me right away, and I'm like, yeah, he's like 2 people away from me. He's like 2 people to my left right now. He's like, oh my God, he's so great, this and that and that. So, I mean, he has, like I said, he has hype, man. And then I was hoping that he didn't choke, to be completely honest with you. I was really, really hoping that he showed up and he did what he did. Obviously wanted to see a better game from Ace. I wanted to be more competitive, but I felt like, because of the hype, Parker needed to knock him out.
I won't fault anyone for not knocking someone out, because you can't control that. You can just answer the questions that are put in front of you, which he did. This gets to my bigger problem, and it's with the inner Geekdom division itself. And that's the fact that it's a very weak division right now. You got your Smets, you got Parker, and you got Chandru, and that's really it. Because Brandon Hanna is very good, but he missed his opportunity. He completely faltered it against Chandru. And now who else is left? Kalinowski has said that he wants to focus on teams right now. He's got a big teams match coming up, so he's not competing. Cushing's gone. Mara's taking a big step back right now too, until she gets healthy again. And that's it, because Jason Inman's gone and Jeremy Johns is gone.
We haven't seen Merle. Merle's joining. Remember that. He's IG now.
So Merle and Alex Damon. Those are the other 2 that I was forgetting. Alex Damon, he has first match. He was good. He did pretty well. But he's not blowing the doors off of the place yet. And
it's not Star Wars.
It's not Star Wars. No, it's definitely not.
But Star Wars, man.
I find it to be a division that's kind of lacking right now. So it's adding Parker into it's definitely going to bolster it up. But it just feels like we're heading towards a collision course of Parker versus Smets at some point. And that'll be interesting. And that's why I say to Parker, do it in the playoffs. All right? You got the hype. You got your win. You got the world behind you. The fans loved you before this thing even started. Christian Harloff said your name, and you were already a big star. Go prove
Christian Harloff is calling him Rookie of the Year already. He says that. Yeah. He said if I'm not mistaken, if you see the promo video, I forget who he mentions first. He's like, called Ethan Irwin, Kevin Smets, and now Robert Parker. Yeah.
That's saying a lot, because if you look at this year, you got you got the Barbarian, you got Ben Goddard, there's quite a few rookies coming in right now.
Shout out to the Barbarian, man. It's his birthday today. So happy birthday to the Barbarian. Yeah, and he's kind of going through it right now. So
okay.
Yeah, he has some family issues going on that I actually was talking to him yesterday. So happy birthday, man. I hope everything pulls through.
We'd love to get him on the show sometime. We could talk.
We can get him. No problem.
He seems great.
He's awesome, dude. He's awesome. Very knowledgeable dude. Very, very chill, man.
So, any final words on this matchup, this recap? I mean, I'm sorry, Ace. I know,
and honestly, I'm a fan of Ace since the I've been a fan of Collider and all that stuff for a while already. And even with the Schmoes No Show and all that. It sucks that this was his debut because I know he did it when it was a segment.
Yeah.
But it was a rough match. It was a rough match, but they honestly put him with freaking Goliath in there.
Yeah, they threw him to the wolves. He was not ready. He clearly was not ready because he didn't really understand the game that well yet. That'll come with time. But at this stage in this season, when everybody's hyped up and ready to go, you really can't falter like he did. You need to at least put on a good showing, and it was tough. So I'm sorry, Ace, but with Parker, congratulations. You did everything perfect. There's nothing more you could have done.
No, honestly, there was nothing more he could have done. He stole what he needed to steal. He answered a perfect round one, got his bonus questions. Like there was nothing else for him left for him to do. There was nothing else. He couldn't have gained any more points. Like it's insane. It's insane.
So it reminds me of Bibiani's first match. Because Bibiani went perfect in his first match. He only went to multiple choice for one question, but answered every single question. Then in his next match, you saw what happened. So anything can go wrong, or anything can go right. I think Inner Geekdom, it's a lot easier to have a run because you know what to expect. But we'll see what happens. So that's Parker versus Ace. Let's move on to what we decided to come up with through the middle of the week. We have a new segment where we're going to put out a poll every single week, and we're going to talk about a movie. We're going to come up with a category on our own, and we'll put out 4 choices, and you guys vote on them, and that to choose what movie we should watch, and we'll watch that movie and talk about it here. So we had, what was it, Oscar snubs, right?
Snubs or Oscar, not really snubs. I don't want to say snubs either, but because we were going to talk about what film won the Oscar, and it deservedly so versus over The Fugitive. But I want to say that these were films that should not be forgotten, even though they did not win the Oscar.
Yeah, so it was basically movies that were nominated for the Oscar and didn't win it. And our choices were, I believe we had Good Will Hunting on there. We had LA Confidential. We had The Social Network, which how would you guys not pick The Social Network is beyond me, especially.
I'm telling you, I think I know why. I think because The Social Network is really fresh. And I feel like even though a lot of people said that they wanted us to review it, and give me 1 second, man. Hold on. Give me 1 second. I apologize.
Oh, you're good. But here's the thing. You guys did choose The Social Network, and that's frustrating to me because The Social Network to me is a perfect movie, and I think we're going to talk about it eventually on the show. But The Social Network is one of those films that's gotten better with time, and it was already perfect when it came out. So one day you guys will understand the greatness of it, but I'm blown away that you chose The Fugitive.
I'm sure that people didn't pick The Fugitive over over The Social Network because they feel The Fugitive is a better film. I think it's one of those movies that they picked because, hey, we haven't heard about this movie in a while. Let's see what these guys have to say. I don't think it was we're picking this because it's a better film. I think it's one of those like we'd rather just listen to this versus listening to someone else talk about Social Network or something like that. That's how I took it. I really wanted to talk about LA Confidential, to be completely honest with you, which eventually we will. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't seen LA Confidential.
I'm gonna make you watch that movie. So we'll see it in, I want to say, in less than a month. We'll probably talk about LA Confidential because I don't even know what were the final standings on the poll.
So it was The Fugitive was number 1, and then 1 vote behind was LA Confidential, and then 2 votes behind was Good Will Hunting, and then all the way at the bottom with only 3 votes was The Social Network.
So you were one of the 3, huh?
Jeez.
Yeah, I honestly think that's what it is. I don't think it was anything else. I don't think people are shitting on that because, like we said, I don't want to say last show, or I don't know if it was a personal conversation that we had. The Social Network is, in the general senses, it was everybody's top. It was in the top 3 of almost everyone's best of the decade.
Yeah.
So that goes without saying. I honestly just think that people just wanted to, hey, we haven't heard about The Fugitive in a while. Let's talk about it. And this movie has a crazy amount of love, man. Obviously.
It does. And I didn't know this love existed going into it. Because I don't pick 90s movies. Probably 90s is probably my biggest gap because it really wasn't a great decade for film. It was a very
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
Compared to what? Compared to the 2010s have been way better than the 90s. Okay, not the 80s, but the 70s were way better and the 60s were way better.
I feel like it depends on what genre, I guess. Like science fiction wise, yeah, I feel like the 2000s are obviously better. Even though, again, we talk about the end of like 1999, we have revolutionary films that set the tone.
It feels like another decade in itself was 99. Just the year 99 feels like its own decade compared to everything else that the 90s did.
So I think, we're gonna jump into The Fugitive now. I think it's confession time. At least the audience. This was a first time watch for me. I had never. Yeah, no, but that's more excusable for you than for me. This is unexcusable for me. But I had never seen it. I owned it, which was even crazier. I owned it on DVD. We had it on VHS, and I've only seen the first 10 minutes, and I would just like turn it off, or I would have to do something, and I never got into it. It's crazy because as soon as I finished it, the first person I called to tell that I saw it was my mother, because my mom loves this movie, loves it. And go ahead.
I want to understand why. So let's break down the plot itself. The plot is the movie is about Harrison Ford, who is a doctor, who his wife is murdered by a one-armed man, and then he is falsely accused of murdering his wife. And as he gets convicted of it, and as he's on the bus going to jail, the bus crashes and he escapes, and he's out to prove that he's innocent. Meanwhile, he's being chased by Tommy Lee Jones. And that is your movie. It's your classic let me prove that I'm innocent movie while the cops are chasing me. You've seen this movie before. Not the movie itself, but the specific plot. It happens a lot where I want to prove that I'm innocent. So going back and watching it, nothing really surprised me. And that's unfortunate. But Harrison Ford stars along with Tommy Lee Jones, who won the Oscar for this movie, which is mind-blowing. Tommy Lee Jones won Best Supporting Actor for this. We'll get into that. But what did you think of the movie first time watch? What was your takeaway?
I personally loved it. I thought it was fantastic, and I see why everybody else did, to be completely honest with you. Now, the whole element of surprise thing there was no surprise for me. To be completely honest with you, it's a whole, it starts off, it's a great whodunit film in my opinion. Trying to figure out who, the one-armed man is and the whole nine yards. But I had a lot of fun with it. But for me, Tommy Lee Jones was the star of this film. I thought his character, Gerard, was just, he was there on a mission. Again, it's funny how I'm using things like right on the nose, but the movie didn't really, like, the ball didn't start rolling for me until Tommy Lee Jones, like, no pun intended, with Harrison Ford and the ball rolling. But it wasn't until he shows up, and the way he shows up, the how he gets there, and how he's like, I want police 15 miles this way. When the whole train wreck thing, and then you have the cop saying, no, we already took care of it. And then the other cop says, no, that these guys are dead already. And then they find, the handcuffs missing. Just that whole scene for me was great. I love the train scene. One, I love how Harrison Ford has never had a role like this, in my opinion, because he was always the leading man, and he was the leading man in this, but he was always the focus, and in this, he barely has any dialogue in the movie. Like in the beginning, he barely talks. It's him always on the run.
But it is his movie. I mean, he does.
Yeah, no. Of course. But for me, like, and it's crazy how we all know that the one-armed man is the villain in the film. But for me, like, the antagonist is Tommy Lee Jones until a certain point, because he's not judge or jury. He's there to have, his mission is to arrest Dr. Richard Kimball and that's that. One of my favorite lines of dialogue, which is,
I know you're going. Yeah,
you already know where I'm going, where he has them, and then he goes, I didn't kill my wife, and he goes, I don't care. I love that. I thought that was great, and the reason why I loved it so much was just that, because that guy's mission is to arrest you. He don't care what you did. They told him that he needs to be arrested. That's who he's going after. Figure it out later, you know. So I don't know. I really liked it. The whole twist, I want to say, at the end, I saw coming.
Yeah. So here's the I saw last year Angel Has Fallen, which is the third movie in the Has Fallen franchise. There's dumb action movies. But that I remember walking out of that movie and someone in the crowd in the theater goes, "The Fugitive called, they want their movie back." So now I get what they're saying, because Angel Has Fallen is pretty identical to it. So I saw the twist coming. I knew that guy was dirty from the start. Let's break down some questions then. What was, you said your favorite scene was the train wreck scene?
No. I honestly liked the sewer scene.
The sewer scene.
What leads to that, the whole chase, the helicopter chasing him going into the sewer, him jumping off. That for me was fantastic. I like the train. I like the train wreck. The train wreck was great. But for me, where I was like, oh man, like where I was like, we're getting into something, was literally that chase scene. I thought that chase scene was great.
Okay, so that's definitely up there. For some reason, my favorite scene is when Harrison Ford breaks into the one-armed man's apartment and calls Tommy Lee Jones on the phone. And I guess they've been getting phone calls from people claiming to be Harrison Ford the entire day. And finally, they get Harrison Ford on the phone, and he said, "Do you remember what you said to me in the sewer?" And he's like, and Tommy's like, he's trying to push it off, like, "Oh no, I don't remember." And he said, I told you that I didn't murder my wife, and you said you don't care." And he's like, "Yeah, it's because I don't care. I'm just here to catch." And he goes, "Well, I care, and I'm putting in. You need something like that." But he says, "I care," and then he doesnn't hang up. He just he slams the phone down.
So they can track it.
Yes, because he found a big piece to the puzzle. I love that scene, because it's like Harrison Ford saying, "I know you're chasing me. I know you're trying to find me. I want you to find me, but not yet.
Not yet, yeah.
Come here, and I want to show you why I'm innocent." So, but my thing that was kind of like iffy with me in the movie is up until the bus crash happens and he escapes, he doesn't it's not like he had a plan to escape prison and go prove his name wrong. He was on his way to prison and his life was over. And then as soon as that bus crashes, it's like all suddenly instantly in his mind, he's like, "All right, I have a plan now to go clear my name."
You get a second chance. Not many prisoners going to jail can say that, you know? Like, I understand what you're trying to say. Kind of like not believable. I mean, like, is that what you're trying to say?
Like suddenly this guy's the master of disguise and he can he's not going to get caught anywhere. Although every time they're close to catching him, they find clever ways for him not to get caught. I really like when they're in, it's at the place where he talks to the one-armed man in jail. Or not one-armed man, somebody in jail. And
it would be no. It was a one-armed man, but it was a wrong name. Remember, he was on the computer trying to find the different amputees and all that, and there was one that had a hearing or a trial, and he went to go see him, and when he sees him, he's like, "It's not him." That was genius, bro. I love that.
He leaves the building, and Tommy Lee Jones almost catches him. He shoots the glass, and it's bulletproof glass. You could have died there. I like how he goes out into the parade and puts a green hat on and just kind of blends in with the crowd. That's
you want a little fun fact on that?
What's that?
I did a little digging. You know, this movie's based off of a 1963 show. It had 120 episodes. Same thing, but what they did in 2 hours, they spanned this out for 120 episodes. They weren't hour-long episodes or anything. I think they were like 20 or 30 minutes long, and it was piecing who the one-armed man is. And I think it was on air for 4 years, and they almost didn't give up who the one-armed man was. But it was one of those, everybody was so invested in the show that they ended up writing an ending for it.
Yeah.
I think, if I'm not mistaken. So that's a little fun fact there. So that's where The Fugitive originally came from. It was a show. Now, that show, obviously, not the show, the movie it's based out of Chicago. and they say the St. Patrick's Day parade, correct?
Yeah.
So that scene was literally thrown in there last minute. All right. So that wasn't in the script, but I think it was I don't know if it was the director or the writer of the film. I wish I would have written it down. Is a Chicago native and wanted to incorporate the festival, the St. Patrick's Day festival, in the film. Now, you notice, you know how he's trying to be all inconspicuous, and he grabs the hat and
he takes his jacket off. Yeah.
So he, I don't know if it was the director, wrote a letter to the mayor, and the mayor gave the approval to be able to shoot the parade. But they didn't tell the crowd that Harrison Ford was going to be there. So him dodging and all that stuff is really him dodging the crowd so they wouldn't recognize him, and Tommy Lee Jones behind him. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. Yeah. I like every escape moment that happens in this film, because the guy who turns out to be the villain mentions that he's really smart, that Harrison Ford's really smart, and you're not going to catch him. Which, okay, he is really smart, but is he really smart enough to be like the Houdini? He's a guy. Yeah. Come on. But he steals a guy. He shaves his beard and he cuts his hair. He dyes his hair, and then he steals some guy's eggs who can't move, and then walks out of the hospital.
Which 2 scenes later, his hair's back to normal. I don't know if you noticed that. It went back to brown. I was like, what the hell happened there, dude?
I want to say, I think this movie is a ton of fun. I do. I think it's a really good time. You can always put it on, and it's great. I think that it is kind of dated, though. The 90s feel on it. And I hate, you hear the whooshing so much in the back of poor sound design. That was a thing in the 90s, and it's not a thing anymore. And now you really notice it when you go back and watch these films. And that's what I found a little frustrating was, okay, this is just a pure 90s cheesy movie, really. And it's got some good elements to it, but at the end of the day, what's it really trying to say? I'm not sure.
Dated, yes. Rewatchability, I think it has plenty of rewatchability. I think it's a movie now that if it's on, I'll probably just leave it on the boob tube for a little bit, because I really enjoyed it. And it's one of those it finished and I'm like, man, that was a good movie. Good. And then the next day I was like, man, no, I think I really liked it. And when I'm writing my notes and, I was trying to see if there's any like fun facts about the film that I didn't know. And that was the one that I liked the most, to be honest with you. But the more, even now during dinner, Steph was like, oh, what are you guys going to talk about? I'm like, oh, we're going to talk about The Fugitive. That's why I saw it. And then she's like, let me tell you. She goes, at first I thought it was really good. She goes, but it's a great movie. I haven't stopped thinking about it. I'm like, yeah, it's a really good movie. I really enjoyed myself. Another thing that I found out was that Julianne Moore's character was supposed to be a love interest. And yeah, and I'm really glad that they took that out, because I don't know how I would feel about a love interest while I'm trying to discover the murder of my dead wife. Like I just, it wouldn't work. So I'm kind of glad that they did chop that out. But apparently she had shot a lot of scenes. Like they chopped out like 40 minutes worth of scenes, because she's only in that one scene. I mean, well, let's say like 2 or 3 scenes in the film,
Mm-hmm.
But apparently she was going to be in the movie for a good 40 minutes, and that all got clipped. So I thought that was another little fun fact there.
So the thing that stood out to me the most with this movie is it was nominated for Best Picture. I find that insane compared to other years. Like when you think of the Oscars, you think of mostly these dramas, your war films, your biopics, your prestige things. I would have never expected for the.
I didn't know until honestly when we came up with the topic where you're like, hey, let's talk about some films that didn't. Now, was it snubs? No, because Schindler's List went up against Schindler's List, and that's a better film.
So let me read off your nominees. You got Schindler's List, The Fugitive, In the Name of the Father, The Piano, and The Remains of the Day. In all defense of The Fugitive, the only movies we're talking about for today in 2020 is Schindler's List and The Fugitive. Those are the only 2 that stood the test of time as far as being in the conversation and being relevant.
Have you seen In the Name of the Father?
I have.
I really, really, really like that movie. But I also I grew up with it. Also, my again, my mom was a reason I'm the way that I am is because of my mother. My mother used to rent movies. She used to work next to a video store, so she would just ask the guy, "Hey, what came out this week?" She'd bring it home, and if I was able to watch, she really, if it had nudity, she was kind of one of those like, "All right, maybe you shouldn't watch this." Violent was perfectly fine, you know. And and it In the Name of the Father was one of those movies that really stuck with me, and I don't feel like anybody talks about it, and I do feel like more people should see it. Daniel Day-Lewis is fantastic in that movie. I don't think he won the Oscar for that, but he was definitely nominated.
So that was 93. Tom Hanks won for Philadelphia that year.
Philadelphia won, yeah. Philadelphia won. Tommy Lee Jones won, and Schindler's List won. Okay.
So yes, so Tommy. Well, we'll get Tommy Lee Jones, but I want to talk about the Best Picture nominees. The other, so the Piano and The Remains of the Day, we're really not talking about nowadays. These days, these are some of the other movies that came out in 1993 that could have been nominated over The Fugitive or any of these other films. The Nightmare Before Christmas, Jurassic Park, a Steven Spielberg film. So Spielberg was getting a lot of love that night because Jurassic Park did win 2 Oscars. Also,
visual effects was definitely one of them, and
I forget
it wasn't score, right?
No, so Schindler's List won scores. John Williams won his Oscar that night. Yeah.
Was Jurassic Park nominated?
No, Jurassic Park was. I don't believe.
No, for score.
I don't believe it was nominated for score.
That's a goddamn crime.
Well, yeah, but I think they probably looked at it as, okay, Williams is already he's already nominated here tonight.
But if you think all-time scores, are you gonna pick Schindler's List over Jurassic Park? Never in a million years, dude. Come on.
Well, so Jurassic Park was nominated for 3 Oscars, and it got all 3 of those Oscars. It got Best Sound, Best Sound Effects, and Best Visual Effects.
Yeah.
So that was Jurassic Park Day. So Spielberg was getting a lot of love that night. You also have, so I said Nightmare Before Christmas, Jurassic Park, Falling Down, Groundhog Day, which I think Groundhog Day kind of holds up a little bit more.
I love Groundhog Day. And Falling Down is another really, 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 really underrated movie, man.
Yeah. What's Grape is also on the list. Tombstone. Tombstone's in there. In the Line of Fire. Philadelphia was not nominated for Best Picture that year, but Tom Hanks won. That's surprising to me.
That's crazy to me.
The Pelican Brief.
You know what I haven't seen? I have not seen in the Line of Fire, and I hear it's fantastic.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one either, but it's Clint Eastwood.
John Malkovich, man. John Malkovich is in that.
Is it?
Yeah. I heard, and that's the reason why it's funny because they're like, "Oh, it's a good Clint Eastwood film." And then when I heard John Malkovich's name, I was like, "All right, I'm down now." Like I was more like they were dragging more. I was more attracted to seeing a John Malkovich film over Clint Eastwood, which is blasphemous, but whatever. So yeah, no, there were plenty of films that year. I think the Firm came out that year as well with Tom Cruise, and that's a great film.
Well, there's one that's gonna stick in your thread. A Bronx Tale came out that year.
I'm glad.
What else we got here? And then Sleepless in Seattle is another one I'd bring up. So those are your other potential films that I think could have been nominated. I would take The Fugitive out for Jurassic Park. I would take it out for Groundhog Day, probably. Nightmare Before Christmas, I think, deserved the Best Picture nomination because that movie's a classic now. If you look back at it, it was revolutionary. So yeah, it surprises me that The Fugitive is a movie that is in the books as a Best Picture nominee against something like Philadelphia. Philadelphia wasn't nominated, but
Philadelphia is definitely a better film. Jurassic Park is it's in my top 10 of all time. I absolutely adore that movie. But I guess I'm used to the Oscar snubbing films like that or not. Yeah, well, none of our comic book films are ever gonna get nominated.
We've definitely changed nowadays.
Yeah, well, yeah, with Dark Knight. Well, Dark Knight never got nominated only because it didn't have enough slots. And the reason why we have as many nominees as we do now is because of the Dark Knight.
Yeah, it's 100% why, because now we've seen your comic book films get nominated. Saw Logan for screenplay, and then you got Black Panther.
Black Panther got nominated for Best Picture.
and then Joker the very next year. So we are seeing it happen. Let's move on to supporting actor. So Tommy Lee Jones won that year for supporting actor over Leonardo DiCaprio for What's Eating Gilbert Grape, Ralph Fiennes for Schindler's List, John Malkovich for In the Line of Fire, and Pete Postlethwaite in The Name of the Father. I don't believe
you got some heavy hitters, man. You got some heavy hitters. I can't speak for, again, as much as I'm gonna see In the Line of Fire. I'll probably make some time this weekend to watch it, because it has been mentioned to me over and over again, and it's one of those films that they tell me you have to see. It's a great movie, and I was sold. And I didn't even know John Malkovich was nominated for it, so it's even better news for me because you're gonna get your top tier Malkovich.
Yeah. Do you think that Tommy Lee Jones gave an Oscar-winning performance in The Fugitive? Because I don't think he did at all. I think he was Tommy Lee Jones.
I think, well, that's the thing. You've seen so many of his films at the time. You have to understand that back then, what did he have under his belt? To be completely honest with you,
let's find out.
You have to think like we're in 1993, not because I know after that he did Natural Born Killers. He did
Men in Black.
Men in Black. I think he did like Under Siege before he did before he did The Fugitive.
So that was the same director. It's Andrew. What was his name?
It starts with a W, right?
Andrew Davis. Andrew Davis directed it. Who we'll get to him too. So Andrew Davis hasn't directed a film since 2006 with The Guardians, which is a very interesting thing. But Tommy Lee Jones, to that point, Under Siege, he had done JFK, and that's really it. Yeah.
So exactly. So you just said Tommy Lee Jones played Tommy, and what?
Coal Miner's Daughter. That's another one.
But you just said Tommy Lee Jones played Tommy Lee Jones. I don't think he did. I think that's the film where he started being that type of character. You get me?
So I don't say it as a bad thing. I just say it as, what did he do in that film that was so like inspiring or like took your breath away that would win you an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor? Because you look at Tom Hanks won for Philadelphia that year for lead actor. It's you can see why.
Yeah, that's night and day. I get that 100%. The thing for me is that I just love the character so much, but I haven't seen In the Line of Fire. Mm-hmm. I've seen What's Eating Gilbert Grape, and DiCaprio crushed.
Yes.
I'm just not Ralph Fiennes Ralph Fiennes could have been the snub that year, to be completely honest with you.
I think he was.
That could have been. I think he should have been. I think he should have been a lock, because Ralph Fiennes was scary in that film. He was a scary character in that. So I can see, if anybody should be upset, it's that. But other than that, I haven't seen Malkovich. I did see In the Name of the Father, and he was fine. But I still I don't know if it was just that I like the character more. It was just more an appealing character. Again, we're going back, like, we're used to that Tommy Lee Jones, but in 1993, people weren't, So I feel that just, again, his quips, he was very, very fast. I loved how I mentioned earlier, how his mission was to get Dr. Kimball, and he wasn't going to do anything to stop at that, And that's what I said. I feel like he did take over the movie. If I feel, had it not been Harrison Ford there, like, it had been any other actor, it wouldn't have it wouldn't have I don't know. I don't feel like Harrison Ford, being the big name that he was outshining his own movie.
I just don't think this was Tommy Lee's best performance he's put on. He was later.
What do you think is his best performance?
So for me, it's No Country for Old Men. It's that broken down man who is just given up on life and sees that there's evil in this world and there's just nothing you can do about it, who comes to that realization late in his life, and he's like, there's nothing. Like, that last scene in No Country for Old Men is heartbreaking.
It is heartbreaking.
That he did his best and his best wasn't good enough, and you could see that tear down on his face. I also think he got nominated for In the Valley of Elah, and Lincoln. Those are his other 2 nominations after The Fugitive, before he got nominated for JFK, before The Fugitive. So he's had himself quite a career. I think he's definitely a memorable actor for stuff like Men in Black, where him and Will Smith have a great dynamic with each other. I was just listening to a podcast where they talked to Barry Sonnenfeld, and he had the fight to get Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones because they originally wanted Chris O'Dowd and who was the other guy?
Chris O'Donnell?
No, Chris O'Donnell. I think it was Chris O'Donnell. O'Donnell. Yeah, Chris O'Donnell.
Chris O'Donnell. Robin.
Yeah, they wanted him for Will Smith's role and someone else for Tommy Lee Jones. I forget, but Barry Sonnenfeld had to fight for both those guys to get in there, and you just can't imagine.
Glad he did. I cannot imagine that movie without either one of them.
Yeah,
their play off each other was just so great. I feel that Men in Black is one of the few films. I know it was praised at the time, but I feel like it's a very forgotten film.
It is
because I don't feel like people give and I think it has that taint from the sequels. Because none of the sequels.
I think 3 is really fun, but people kind of gave up after 2 and said,
I like 3 a lot, to be completely honest with you. I love 3. I think we discussed this last time we talked to each other. I still haven't seen International.
You don't
Yeah. No, Steph saw it last week, and I told her, I'm like, I heard it's shit. She goes, well, are you comparing it to the other ones? And then I'm like, well, yeah, you have to. It's a Men in Black film. Of course you're going to compare it. She goes, yeah, it's shit. And then she goes, but had there not been any Men in Black films, she goes, it's fine. She goes, it's not.
It's still shit.
Yeah.
What else? Oh man, what was I gonna say? A movie that I think Tommy Lee is very underrated in, and I'm gonna sound kind of like a nerd for this, but whatever. I think he's great in Captain America: The First Avenger.
No, he is. I feel that film is super underrated. Yes. I feel like that film doesn't get praise. Captain America in the MCU is the best trilogy. There's no better trilogy. Even give me the Avengers movies, which that's kind of like cheating.
I don't think Avengers movies are better than the Iron Man movies.
But the thing is, the Avengers film versus Iron Man what?
Avengers 1, 2, and 3, I would say are not as good as Iron Man 1, 2, and 3.
I'll kill you. First of all,
I think Iron Man is a top 5 MCU film.
Iron Man 1 is completely. Yes. It is definitely. 2 and 3 are bottom for me. Bottom. Literally, it's Iron Man 2 at the very bottom, and Iron Man 3 right there, and then I want to say Thor, and then Captain Marvel.
We're gonna do this on an episode.
We're gonna have to, because there is no way in hell that you can convince me otherwise. That you're gonna tell Iron Man.
I don't like Ultron.
Huh? What happened?
Oh, what were you saying? Sorry, sorry, the internet went out for a second. Ultron for me is not a good movie, and I don't think the first Avengers holds up at all. I think it's very cheesy.
I hate you. I love the first Avengers. The first Avengers for me is one of the greatest superhero movies ever made. I cannot wait for this episode. By the way, stay tuned.
Nah.
Because first Avengers.
All right, so we got to decide if we're doing Harry Potter, Marvel next week.
I'll get into MCU all day, man. I'll get into MCU all day, and we can break down literally. We can do a whole episode on just. We're not gonna talk for hours for every film. We gotta, it's more of a. We're gonna go through the MCU, but honestly, dude. You can't convince me otherwise. I think that Iron Man is actually one of the. I felt so bad because part 1 it sets off the MCU, and part 1 is so freaking good. It's just a great film, and it holds up.
And so
it holds. And then no, it doesn't. Oh, God, I'm gonna. Oh, when we get there, man. When we get there. Anyway.
But you were right about Captain America being the best trilogy from that easily, and that until Guardians 3 comes out, obviously, but.
We're gonna have fun.
Captain America trilogy is very good, but it doesn't hold up if that first one doesn't kick off really well. And I think that grounding force in the film is Tommy Lee Jones' general character. He has a presence about him that is very you're drawn to it because he's this authority figure that you want Captain America to prove himself to. You want Tommy Lee Jones to accept him as a soldier. And if you don't have a hard ass guy like Tommy Lee Jones, it doesn't work. So that's why I really appreciate him in that first Captain America film. Him and his relationship with Peggy Carter and how
the supporting cast is great.
And they're all forgotten really because that movie takes place in the 1940s. Obviously, Sebastian Stan comes back at some point, but yada yada yada. I think Tommy Lee Jones is great in that film, which ties it back to The Fugitive. I think Tommy Lee Jones has had an amazing career. Until recently, he does have a reputation for himself as a grouchy old man.
I'm hearing that he's the worst person to interview. So.
Yeah, it's gonna come for us one day, and he's just. We won't be surprised. We'll be looking forward to him and Harrison Ford. Honestly, I've heard Harrison.
Yeah, both of them actually. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
I've heard Harrison Ford's great, but he's also like, if you don't crack him within the first minute, he's gonna be hard on you. Sam Jackson's the same way too. Right. It's just these old men kind of having fun with these interviews, but Tommy Lee Jones has a reputation to him. What was that just? He was in a movie last year. He was in Ad Astra with Brad Pitt. And he plays grouchy Tommy Lee Jones. So Tommy Lee Jones goes to another planet all the way out. I think it's Venus he goes to or whatnot, just to get away from everyone because he's tired of life and he wants to restart in Venus. And Brad Pitt has to go all the way out there to find him, and he doesn't want to go back. That's Ad Astra for you. It's not worth it. But that's Tommy Lee Jones.
It's always on the queue, and I'd rather see anything else at the time than that because I know I'm going to have to invest in a – I heard it's not crazy long, but it's lengthy. It's like a little over 2 hours. But I heard it's super slow. That they're like those 2 hours feel like if you're watching the 10 Commandments.
So Brad Pitt's the lead in that film, one of the most charismatic actors out there. And his character trait is he's not allowed to have his heart rate go over 48 or something like that, or else. Yeah. So you take away all the energy away from one of the most charismatic actors out there. It was boring to watch in theaters. It's beautiful to see because it's a very well shot film, but it's also just it's hard to get through. So that's a tangent right there. What else?
One of the things that I do want to mention about The Fugitive before we go is I loved Joe Pantoliano in it.
Joey I know.
Yeah, man.
I everywhere, man.
Yeah, no, he really does. He really does. But I really liked him in the film. He was the comedic relief in the movie. But he wasn't a stupid character by any means. You know, he was right there, right behind Harrison Ford. But he lets out these one-liners that you can't help but laugh. Like in the famous scene where he jumps, where Harrison Ford jumps, and they're both looking down, and he's like, he jumped, and he's like, oh my God, like it's complete disbelief. And then he looks at Tommy Lee Jones and he goes, "Can we go home now?" Like that's it, he's dead. We're good, you know. And then at the end, and when you think something happens to his character, but you end up nothing, it's not as bad. And he, you know, the whole like you nearly died, and he goes, "Yeah, I'm taking my vacation. I'm done. Like this is good." But yeah, man, I really like this character as well. You know, I like.
He's that. He's that. So you're telling me character where if you ever watched Law and Order SVU, he's Ice-T, the guy who's there to just explain to the audience what they might not get. So he goes to Tommy Lee Jones, be like, "So you're telling me that the doctor might not be telling the truth?" And
yeah.
And if you watch Law and Order SVU, Ice-T's like, "So what you're saying is that it might have been a manslaughter instead of a murder," just stuff like that.
That was a good Ice-T, by the way.
Perfect. Yes. So Joey Pants is probably the best guy in Hollywood to do that. To be that you're telling me guy. I also think a weird cameo from Jane Lynch. She's just kind of sitting there.
I mean, it was honestly a let's push the story forward like a tiny bit. I like seeing a young Jane Lynch. Like I didn't even know, like I had no idea she was in this film. Because I'm so used to seeing her in her comedic roles.
Yeah.
You know, but I like seeing her. I liked when you first see her, how she was very like, I liked how everybody had this doctor's back because they knew the type of person he was. And you see it throughout the film. That's one of the things I did like about Harrison Ford's character, that he couldn't help but try to help people.
Yeah.
You know, when that kid, you know, when he knew what was wrong with the kid, when he was seeing the X-ray and all that, and he ends up saving the kid's life while being chased down. Like, I thought that was all like great character arcs. But the thing is that his arc never changes. So Harrison Ford is the same person from beginning to end. And that's one thing that I did see in Tommy Lee Jones. Tommy Lee Jones was his bloodhound that was after, but then he realizes, hey, man, I could be wrong.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and then you see that certain arc. One of the things that I wish would have happened was, you know, at the end, you know, again, we can talk spoilers. This movie's super old. At the end, when they get in the back of the police car together, and he unhandcuffs him, and they start like kind of like joking with each other. Felt like that was a little out of place because they weren't friends, even though, yeah, we know that he wasn't. If that would have been like silent, like kind of one of those nods, like, you know, we're square, we're good.
Yeah.
I felt like that would have been just a little bit more like, I don't know, like more to tone of the film, you know?
So what's the legacy of this movie? What do you think? What do you think has made this movie so popular? It's for our audience to pick it over LA Confidential, Good Will Hunting, and Schindler's List, movies that I thought at least were way more popular in the public consciousness. Why do you think?
I honestly didn't. I thought this would win second place. I'm kind of, you know, I thought it was definitely going to be Good Will Hunting or The Social Network that we were going to have to review.
Mm-hmm.
I was surprised to see The Fugitive. Once I saw the tally, I was like, I'm just going to watch it, because you text me.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, we're going to have to watch The Fugitive. I'm like, I saw it last night because I already knew it was going to win. I'm like, I already knew it was going to win. And I think it was honestly maybe, and I can't even say that because I'm here trying to think like it's 1993. What films were nominated? And this was just, it's a fun movie. It's a movie that everybody's going to watch. Not everybody's going to be able to watch Schindler's List. All right? It's not for everybody. In the Name of the Father is a hard watch as well. Okay? The Pianist is a hard watch.
The piano.
The Piano. Okay. The Piano. Pianist is I'm sorry. The Piano. That was with Holly Hunter. She got nominated for that, actually. She won. She won. I think it was back to back then. Or she was nominated back to back and she won for that. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
But yeah, so those are not movies for everybody. I felt like out of, I guess, the Oscar, and it always happens, there's always going to be some movie that you're going to just gravitate to more when you're watching, when you're seeing what movie won the Oscar? Okay, this one. Or, all right, well, I don't, and a lot of people think that a lot of the Oscar winners are overhyped, you know? I feel like it's the most, I guess, fun out of every movie that was nominated. And I feel like that's why everybody gravitated towards the Fugitive. It's a movie that, again, my grandma, I know, has seen that movie and she liked it. She always said, El Fugitivo, tremenda película, saying like it's a great movie, you know, in Spanish. So I feel like it's that. I feel like the reason why The Fugitive is so popular is because look at what it was against, you know, that year.
I think the word you've said a couple of times is its legacy, and I think it's fun. This movie is a ton of fun. A movie that, if you're flipping through the channels, I recorded this film off Freeform. It was on Freeform, so it was 3 hours, but you can skip through the commercials. It's one of those movies that can be on any channel, and if you stop to watch it, you could pop in at any time and have a good time with it all the way up until the end.
Yeah.
It's worth the watch. Does it hold up as well compared to other stuff? Not as much. I think if we were to rank the 4 films that we have on our list, neither of us seen LA Confidential, but I would say Good Will Hunting and The Social Network are better than it. But it's no slight to The Fugitive, because I think The Fugitive is definitely a movie of its time, but it definitely encapsulates the early 90s, and it's a good watch. It really is. So I recommend it. I
do recommend it. I really like. I mean, and it sucks that we're saying we recommend this film that came out in 1993, and we're probably the only assholes that haven't seen this movie. You know,
I think this is this has been fun because it was a good watch for both of us to go back and watch this for the first time. I'm glad we did this because neither of us expected. Both of us were looking forward to watching something like The Social Network.
I really wanted to see LA Confidential, but I did not know that you had not seen it yet.
Yeah.
So now I'm even more excited because we will cover. I'm telling you right now, just like we're more than likely gonna cover The Social Network, we will cover LA Confidential, because I think that movie is very underrated, and it's very, 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 very good.
So I love that movie. What I think we should do going forward is do like maybe once a month we cover either an entire franchise or a director's body of work, something, so that we have a big episode based around that. We talked about in this episode already, we've talked about doing a Harry Potter franchise review, MCU franchise review, and we just talked about how we want to go back and watch something like LA Confidential. I'm thinking in my back of my mind, I want to talk about David Fincher. I want to talk about his body of work.
I think Fincher films, I'm only missing. I don't even think I'm missing any, to be completely honest. He's one of my favorite.
Alien 3, and that's it. Alien 3 is the only one I haven't. Yeah, exactly.
Watch this. It sucks to say, but I would tell you, I don't want to make you suffer twice. So watch the director's cut. It's a better film.
I'll watch whatever's available. I'm not a big fan of the Alien franchise. I think Alien, the original one, is great. I'm not as big on Aliens as everyone else is. I think it's definitely a good action movie, but I just don't think it's like, this is the most amazing thing I've ever seen in the world.
I love both of them so much, but I do think the first one is superior. But it's the horror. I love the horror aspect. I felt like part 2 lost that. I don't think part 2 is scary at all. No. Part 1 literally freaks you out. And very quick, getting into video games, right? There's this game called Alien Isolation.
I think I've heard of
it. Well, it's available for the Switch. Mm-hmm. I know you definitely. I don't know if you have a PS4. I prefer you should play it on a console over the Switch. I mean, Switch is a console, but PS4 or Xbox. But it's a first-person game, and it's based off the original Alien. You're in the Nostromo, and you have the one alien chasing you, and it's 70s gadgets. So it's not like you have like crazy computer screens and no, it's like you get a little like indicator and you see the beeping and then you see like the alien, and it's so creepy. It is a great survival horror game, and I feel like no one talks about it. Came out about 3 years ago or 4 years ago, and it holds up because I'm replaying it now, and I beat the game already, and I'm shitting myself playing it again because it's really, really good. But I agree with you 100% on Alien. I think that Aliens 2 I don't think it's a superior sequel, but it is a great sequel.
It's a classic. It really, people talk about it all the time. I don't like the newer Alien films. I think Alien, what was the new Covenant? I thought that was terrible because it's the same exact thing we've seen in so many other films, including.
I don't think it's terrible, but I love Prometheus way more. Yeah. Prometheus is a way better film. But I didn't hate Covenant, to be completely honest. It was underwhelming, especially coming off of Prometheus and Ridley Scott. All the ideas he was pitching prior to Covenant coming out. I got really hyped for it, and it just didn't do it for me. I liked it, I just didn't love it. But it's way better than AVP and Requiem and all these other. It's better than Alien 3. It's not the worst Alien. It was just underwhelming.
Yeah. So next week, guys, we'll talk about it after this. But The Fugitive was this week. Next week we either have a movie or we'll have a franchise. We'll discuss it off air, and then we'll definitely get a pull out to you guys probably by tomorrow, so we can discuss films that we want to talk about. I want to say thank you to everyone for watching our show for week 2. I think this has been a really fun episode. We'll do it again next week. We'll talk about whatever Schmoedown comes out. We'll talk about whatever news is going on, and then we'll just break down movies because we love movies here and we have a great time. We're still working on a title for the show. We'll get to it eventually.
This is working.
But we're doing good so far. So thank you guys. Jader, you have anything you want to say?
No, same as last time. Stay home. Even if it's a concert, stay home.
And all you people in Jacksonville, don't go to the beach. I know Jacksonville just open beaches in Florida.
I don't understand that. I think that is like the dumbest thing you can possibly do.
Our state's dumb, but that'll be another thing maybe one day. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next week on the Jader and Kyle show.